very hard, so they came to ensure that there are conditions to make their homeland, their country, Russia, stronger. That's why. Please.
Nikita Kurzun,
NTV, Mr. President, what are the challenges that you see in your new presidential term? Challenges? Well, as for challenges, first of all, we need to resolve the tasks within the special military operation to strengthen our defense capabilities, to strengthen our armed forces, and it is happening at a great rate and with a great quality. But all the main tasks of the development of the country, they were listed in the recent address to the Federal Assembly, and our goal is to make sure that by using this trust by the citizens of the Russian Federation to make everything possible to accomplish all the tasks and to reach all the goals. Please.
Владимир Владимирович, здравствуйте. Анна Деркач, «Мир».
Mr. President, Anna Dierkach, Mir Broadcasting Company, what would you like to say to the citizens of Russia this night? I have just spoken about that when meeting with my headquarters members, and I can repeat this. Thank you, all citizens of Russia, for the trust you put in me, and I will do everything that in my power to resolve the tasks set out for the country to accomplish those goals that we believe an absolute priority. Thank you. Mr. President, first of all, congratulations on May 7th after the inauguration. As law, your government should quit, so maybe you can build your new team in the nearest future, and how will your administration change? You know, the work over the last couple of years showed that the administrative team, in the wide sense of the word, is quite efficient, and the fruit of their labor are quite satisfactory. I say this about the government, about the central bank, about the administration of the president, and the important thing now is to see who will be the most efficient and at which position, so that the general outcome of our teamwork was maximal. With our colleagues from the administration, from the government, from the central bank, because it's also an important part of the executive team that is in charge of the macroeconomical stability. We will think about it. We will make these decisions. There is no haste. We have this chance ensured by the law that we have now 2.5 months to resolve these matters. That's what we are going to do. Could you please pass the microphone over there or here, please? Interfax agency, recent events in the Belgorod region, they say it was a Russian volunteer corps. Do you know anything about this organization? What is its force and what does it represent? You know, back during the Great Patriotic War, there was a unit created by the traitor Vlasov. They were called Vlasovites. They also fought against their motherland with weapons in their arms, and you know how they ended. Back then, those traitors, that scum, fought on the side of Nazis, and now there are similar people who fight on the side of neo-Nazis, of the neo-Nazi regime. These are obvious things. I do not think we need to repeat this again. If their main national hero is Bandera, who served under Hitler, there is nothing else to prove. But nevertheless, there are such people, there are several groups like this, and the one that you've mentioned, there's some kind of volunteer corps. There are 4 of them in total. There are some 2,500 of them in total. Now they are used as fodder to throw into the battles. These are meat grinder battles, I can describe them as such. So they are being sent there to the state border. The losses that they suffer are huge. And out of these so-called volunteers, I don't remember how many exactly were used. I think some 1,500, and the losses are something like 800 people. But here's what I would like to say in this regard. They took weapons and they went against their country, against their motherland. We do not have capital punishment, but when it comes to these people and people like them in the future, we are going to treat them as the people who are in the area of hostilities. We are going to treat them as if they were holding weapons. All the law enforcement agencies will be instructed to find every single individual and to make all the necessary measures against those who are fighting against their motherland with weapons in arms. So they will not be left alone, and they must remember this. Their efficiency is minimal. Even at the battlefield, the commanders reported to me, you can already see that they are irregular troops. They're just running as a crowd. They're just going there into this meat grinder to die. And in general, they're at the state border despite the terrorist attacks, and we are well aware of that. The citizens who live in these territories, they have not just showed their civilian awareness, they have proven true heroes, and I recently said no one can intimidate them, and no one has. It is impossible to intimidate our people. The turnout there in the new territories, in the state regions, the turnout is higher than on average across the country. That's the response of those people to the actions related to those attempts to intimidate them. And those who do that, they do not understand who they deal with. Well, maybe in part it is a good thing that they do not understand that, because they are doomed to be defeated. And now currently they are trying to get somewhere to enter some settlements. Almost 100% of those who delved 100 meters into our territories were destroyed. Scores of tanks were destroyed. And near the state, not at the state border itself, but near the state border, in the rear, they have some 5,000 troops, but the losses are some 40%, and 35% out of those are irreparable. Dozens of tanks, of armored vehicles, and so on and so forth. If that's what they like, if that's how they like it, then we are satisfied with that, because they are launching those senseless offensive. It is truly meat grinder. So it's even favorable for us. So let them try. It means the fewer troops there will be that they could use at the other parts of the line of contact. Fewer of them will be able to participate in the hostilities. And in overall, the initiative is absolutely with the Russian armed forces, and in some, in certain parts of the front line, our lads are grinding them over. They are moving forward every day. So this is more than just an active defense. And these people that you've mentioned, they will not be forgotten about. I can guarantee you this. We can guarantee them this. And the final question, Mr. President, at these elections, some representatives of the opposition, in particular from abroad, they were calling upon their followers today at the midday to vote against you. And at the polling stations, there were attempts to set a fire or to ruin the ballots with some dyes. What do you think about that? Well, from what I heard, from what was reported to me, the calls were to come to vote at noon, so it was supposed to be a manifestation of their opposition sentiments. Well, if the call was to come to vote, you know, I can only praise them for this, because when I was speaking and when I was calling to come to the polling station, I was not campaigning for myself. I was speaking as incumbent head of state. So this is my duty to ask people to go to the polling stations to vote. If that's what their position, to come to vote at the polling stations, no matter who you vote for, then that was a good thing. And from what I understand, it yielded no results. But that's not what's important. What's important is that some of them were destroying the ballots. That's the bad thing. If you do not want to vote yourself, or you want to show trust to some other candidate, or if you do not want to vote, if you do not like anyone, that's one thing. But if you want to ruin other people's attempts to vote, who decided it was important to fulfill their civilian duty, and you neglected, denied them of this chance, then that's a bad thing. That's not democratic. What kind of democracy can we speak about here? People came, expressed their will, and then someone else comes and ruins their ballots. Is this a manifestation of democracy? These are the people we have to deal with. This liable criminal act, and under law, our law enforcement agencies and our courts will act. Mr. President, what do you think about the current state and the development of the Russian-Chinese relations? And in your view, how will the relations between Russia and China look like in the future during your new term? In China, an important event was held. China is developing at very quick rate, very constant rate, and what's important, the structure of the economy in China is changing towards innovations, towards giving the economy more innovative nature, and we are trying to follow suit inside our country because we are facing the similar tasks here in Russia. Secondly, People's Republic of China is working actively on the international stage and achieving a lot of success. They have a lot of friends across the world. And those attempts that are made by the unfriendly countries toward China, first of all, it has to do with the attempts to make all kinds of provocations around Taiwan, which is an inherent part of the People's Republic of China. And it has to do with the sanctions used against China to stop its development, to hinder its development. All these attempts are doomed to fail. So there is no doubt, even those who are trying to do this, they understand that. As for our relations, they have been built for the past 2 decades. They're very sustainable. They complement each other, and I'm confident that this cooperation will continue. And in fact, due to the good friendly relations that I have with the President of the People's Republic of China, of course, that's not the main thing. The main thing is that our national interests correspond, but it gives a good additional backdrop to strengthening our ties. And the relations between Russia and China is a stabilizing factor internationally, and from the point of view of the development of our activities on the Eurasian space. China is implementing its plan for the Silk Road, Belt and Road Initiative. I think it's a very important initiative by President Xi, and there are a lot of overlapping interests in economy, in foreign affairs, and I'm confident that over the next few years we will continue to strengthen these, to increase these, and we will achieve common interests for the good of the Chinese and the Russian peoples. Could you give the floor to Kolesnikov, please? Commerson Daily. Mr. President, in general about the situation, about the preliminary results, is this what you have dreamt about? I have dreamt about a strong, sovereign, independent Russia, and I hope that the outcome of the election will allow us all together with the Russian people to accomplish this goal. Hello, information agency TASS. Macron recently said that he will ask Russia. Macron recently said that he will ask Russia to cease fire for the duration of the Olympic Games in Paris this summer. Is Russia ready to consider this proposal? On what conditions, and will it depend on the participation or not participation of our athletes in the Olympic Games? I have not heard this statement by President of France. We are ready to consider any request, but always, no matter what the situation is, we will first of all think about the interests of the Russian Federation. And of course about the situation at the front line. You know, I have always said that we are in favor of the peaceful negotiations, but not because the opponent is running out of ammunition. We are in favor of these negotiations if they are in earnest, in long term, have the desire to build peaceful, good neighborly relations between the two states, and not just that they want to use this year or 2 years to rearm themselves. These are important matters. As for the Olympic Games, the international officials are perverting the idea of the Olympic movement. They are undermining the foundations of the international sports, but that's a separate matter to speak about.
Mr. President, excuse a question in English. My colleague will translate. Keir Simmons from NBC News. Mr. President, journalist Evan Gershkovich spent this election in prison. Boris Nadezhdin, who opposes your war in Ukraine, wasn't allowed to stand against you. And Alexei Navalny died in one of your prisons during your campaign. Mr. President, is this what you call democracy?
Господин президент, американская телекомпания NBC, Кир Симмонс. Мой вопрос. Американский журналист Эван Гершкович среди многих, кто провел выборы в тюрьме. Борис Надеждин, который выступает против войны, не был допущен к участию в выборах. Алексей Навальный умер в одной из тюрем во время вашей предвыборной кампании. Является ли это демократией, на ваш взгляд?
Is this democracy in your view? This is life. If Mr. Nadezhdin did not participate in this election campaign, first of all, this is the result of unsatisfactory work, preparatory work for this election. He should have worked more actively with his followers, not to allow any mistakes, not to allow any falsifications of those ballots. From what I know, I don't know it for a fact, but from what I understand, the thing is that he did not have enough votes to participate in the elections. That's one. Secondly, as for Mr. Navalny, yes, he passed away. That's always a sad thing. But we had other incidents when people in prison died. Doesn't it happen in the United States? It has happened, and on many occasions. Several days before Mr. Navalny passed away, some colleagues of mine told me, not the people from, not the administration staff, some people told me that there was an idea to exchange Mr. Navalny for some people who are behind bars in the Western countries. You can believe me, or you don't have to believe me. That person, he hasn't even finished speaking. I said that I'm for it, I agree. But unfortunately, what happened. The only condition was for him never to return. If he goes away, he stays there. But, well, things like that happen. You cannot do anything about it. That's life. If you want to know my opinion about whether the elections are democratic or not, I believe they are. And in your country, can we consider it democratic to use the administrative tools to attack one of the presidential candidates in the United States, using, among other things, your courts? We have no preferences to any of the presidential candidates in the United States. We will work with those who will get the trust of the people. But using administrative tools, the courts, it's becoming ridiculous. It's becoming embarrassing for the United States, for your so-called democratic system. I have every reason to believe that no democracy, at least in the presidential election campaigns in certain countries of the West, including the United States, does not exist. So please accept this as an answer.
Здравствуйте, Владимир Владимирович. Поздравляю вас с победой. Информационное агентство «Ура».
Congratulations on your victory, Irina Lazareva.
Вот за последние несколько месяцев
over the last few months, you met a lot of people, and on many occasions you said that Russian women can do a lot. So some of them, they even became military pilots.
Лет 5, наверное, всего одна женщина. А если в списке кандидатов на должность губернатора
and among our governors, we have only one woman. Are there any other women in the list of potential governors, and is there a chance you will offer one of them to become a governor? We do not have that many women in the government, too. But you know, when we are making these decisions, we are not looking at their gender. We're looking at their professional skills, about their qualities. But of course, I personally believe the more women there are in the executive bodies, in the federal, in the regional, in the municipalities, the better. But that's what we are trying to accomplish. That's where we are trying to get. Ksenia Zhribtsova, 360 TV channel. The question is, going back to the elections, the previous 3 days, both in the Moscow region and across the country, foreign observers from 129 countries were working. Did you get any feedback from them? I know that they were saying that they would like to learn from this experience of holding the elections. Will we share? Of course we will. We have no secrets to hide. I'm not going to reveal any big secret. A couple of years ago, we had doubts. Well, some administration staff had doubts. Some were saying about the need to expand the digital voting. Some of the people were against that by various reasons, but finally, those who thought that it's transparent enough, it's civilized enough, it's modern enough, it allows the majority of people, the vast majority of people, to exercise their rights. This point of view prevailed, and Sobyanin also insisted on that, so we started to expand this platform. First of all, it is transparent, and it is absolutely objective, not like in the United States, this voting by mail. You're smiling, but it is important. What is voting by mail? A person comes, and some time ago in the States that was like that, so the voting period is over, but you can send the ballots in until the midnight because you're going to the post office, and if the day is not over yet, you can send it in. And we had a lot of observers, right? Including from the foreign states. It doesn't matter if they are members of the OSCE or not. These are independent people and representatives of the parties. They are watching how the voting is going. And what is happening with this voting by mail in the United States of America? Who was standing there controlling the whole thing? No one. You can buy a vote for $10, and then you buy 1,000 votes, and you just throw it in at midnight. the whole parcel of it. So that's voting for you, that's democracy for you. We have nothing of the kind. Yes, we are trying to improve our system to make it better during the presidential campaigns, and we will be glad. We are willing to share this experience with anyone willing to learn. Couple of questions more, and we will be ending the press conference. Mr. President, I would like to join the congratulations of Russia today. The percent, the vote that you are getting, that's a real slap on the face to all those external forces who were trying to undermine our internal political system, and they were making very serious efforts to achieve this. How do you think, will they learn something from this situation, that they tried to undermine this whole thing, but the people united around you? Well, I think so, because people there in all those organizations who are working against our country have been working against our country for decades. These are not stupid people. But you know what the problem is? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, there were a lot of specialists on the Soviet Union, and they had no other skills but how to fight the Soviet Union. And then they used these skills against Russia. So, and they started to convince their political leaders and the people in their countries that they need to finish Russia off because they wanted to keep their jobs. But the new generation of specialists is coming in, and they have a realistic view of the current situation. I think they will act in more cunning manner, but they will not change the goals regarding Russia.
Marina Kim, Solovьев Live.
Marina Kim, Solovьев Live. Congratulations also, and we believe in you strongly. And the question is, you have just extended your term with flying colors. Zelensky has not. So who do we negotiate about peace with? So we will think about this. So it requires some thinking, some research. Channel 1, the question about your crew, about your team, the mechanism of forming the new elite. You spoke about this Time of Hero program, and maybe you need some of them already now in 2024, some of these people. And as a follow-up to the question about the Belgorod region, barbaric attacks by the Ukrainian regime, a lot of people died. Well, some people died, a lot of people were wounded. 1 year ago, Governor Gladkov, when he was asked how to resolve this question, this problem, he said to ensure security of the Belgorod region, the Kharkiv region should be joined to Russia. What do you think about this? I'm not ready to speak about what we should join and how, but I do not exclude it. I mean, the tragic events occurring today, happening today, we will be forced at a certain point when we deem it necessary to establish a certain sanitary zone in the territories currently under control of the Kiev regime, to establish safety zones that would be hard to overcome using the strike means that the opponent is using. First of all, I'm speaking about the foreign means, foreign strike weapons. How deep such a zone could be? Well, that's a separate thing to discuss. As for the future administration, executive branch. You know, when I spoke about this project, about this program, Time of the Heroes, I'm not exaggerating anything. It just, this idea came to me when I met the last participants of the special military operation in St. Petersburg. All of them have higher education, graduates of the universities, and then this simple idea came to me, and that's something we are trying to organize now, to take these people who do not spare their lives for the interests of their homeland. They are losing their lives. They are getting named there. So because the service is very difficult, because it's dirty there, there's this snow there in the trenches, but they are still fighting. Those who have never been in the trenches have a hard time imagining that, but they are doing that for the sake of their homeland. So it would be the right thing to use them in the future administrations, but they must be trained first. They must be worked with first. And where to use them? Well, it depends on where do they themselves see them. Some of them would like to work in healthcare, some of them would like to work in the law enforcement agencies or in the military service or the state administration. It will depend on the choice a person makes. And then we need to see what they're willing to do. It will depend on the level of training as well. And those of them who have no higher education, they must get a chance to receive a higher education if they want to. That's not some kind of a propaganda trick. I hope that it is going to be constant, gradual work for the years to come. We have already received more than 30,000 applications. Of course, the first step is a few dozens. First, we need to choose the best ones out of them, select best ones out of them, but we will continue to expand this effort, and that's the path we are going to move along. I thought a young man would ask a question, but please. Today, the leader of the Communist Party, Gennady Zyuganov, said that tomorrow you plan to meet Nikolai Kharitonov. Can you confirm that this meeting will take place? And if you are going to have this meeting, what would you speak with him about? And when will you meet two other presidential candidates? Tomorrow, I have the plan to meet all the three presidential candidates, and we look at the outcome. Here is what I would like to say about the Communist Party, about the LDPR, and about the New People political party. As for the New People party, I do not know what the final outcome. But what's always attractive for the people is some kind of novelty. People are always looking forward to some changes, some transformation. So the result that was accomplished, especially since these are the people, I know the leaders of this party well. First of all, their focus is to establish favorable conditions for the business development. In their campaign speeches, Mr. Davankov and his colleagues, I don't know what exactly they said, but in overall, their idea, the gist of their activities is first of all in establishing conditions, better conditions for the entrepreneurial activities, which is a good thing because this social stratum, the entrepreneurs, is the basis for the economy, which is the basis for accomplishment of the national goals, which is a very important effort. As for the Communist Party, we all understand that their voters are, first of all, people who are patriots, patriotic voters, as we call them. And under these conditions, the vast majority of their voters decided to vote for the incumbent president. I mean, the difficult situation that we have found ourselves in, and it had certain impact on the final outcome. And I understand this perfectly, I'm aware of that, but that does not mean that their voting basis shrinked somehow. I do not believe this is true. Under normal conditions in our internal political life, everything will remain the way it was. So we're about to end, so please.
Владимир Владимирович, Виктор Синюк,
You spoke about unprecedented turnout in the new regions, and you spoke about the reasons for it, but you did not say, did it come as a surprise, because near 100% of the voters voted for you, so did it come as a surprise, this outcome? Did you expect it, that it will be the outcome in the new regions, because these people have become our citizens just recently? And the second question, now in the West we hear statements that our elections were not free, they're illegitimate, these are bad elections. So do you care? Are you concerned with what the Western leaders are saying about our elections? As for the outcome in Donbass and Novorossiya and in Crimea as well, actually. In principle, I thought they would be so good, so significant, but to see them as good as they are today, well, I did not expect that. But what does it say? It says, first, that we are doing the right things. People are grateful to us for the decisions that we have made to protect them, and that's the main reason for all our actions. Secondly, they expect us to protect them in every sense of this word. First of all, in security and safety, and of course they expect us to continue to the economical development of these territories, and we will do everything to make sure that all their dreams, all their aspirations came true. As for the reaction from certain Western countries, that's something we could expect. What did you want them to do? To applaud? Because they're fighting against us. They are fighting with arms against us. So they are going to think that they would be applauding not even me personally, but the force that is behind me, the force that wants to strengthen Russia, to increase its defense capabilities, to enhance its economic potential and independence in economy, in finance. Their goal is to deter our development. Of course, they will say anything. Your colleague has just spoken about democracy, and my answer was about how do we assess the democratic processes in his country, in certain other countries. But this is true. The entire world is laughing at what's happening there. We are being a little more constrained than their opponents in the other countries. We behave in a constrained manner, but that's a disaster. That's not democracy. That's what it is. So for me, it is important that the Russian people made their choice. I work in the interest of the Russian people, in the interest of the Russian state, and I'm grateful to the Russian people for the support. If we have any foreign journalists to show our democratic attitude. So you're the only one brave enough to come. Thank you for coming here, for being here despite your skeptical mood. So you're listening to me answering probably in an unpleasant manner, and you wanted to ask some tricky questions, but nevertheless you're here, and it means that not everything is lost for the United States.
Against Reuters.
Reuters agency, maybe it is a silly question, but nevertheless, Macron keeps saying about possible possibility of sending French European troops to Ukraine, and that's a matter of concern for the European nations. How do you think the full-fledged conflict between Russia and NATO, is it possible, and how probable is it? Well, I think everything is possible in the modern world, and as I said before, and it is clear to everyone that this will be one step away from a full-fledged World War III. I do not think anyone is interested in this. As for the stance of President of France, so he has already made certain adjustments. He said that this contingent will perform secondary functions. They will take care of training the military personnel in Ukraine. they would be explaining to them how to use the Western military equipment and so on and so forth. So it's not that different from what the mercenaries are doing now. And there is a military personnel from the NATO countries. We know that. We can hear the French, the English language being spoken, and that's not a good thing for them, first of all, because they are the ones who are dying en masse. But it is up to them, ultimately. If someone wants to cover their internal political problems with this kind of rhetoric, well, that's a well-known trick that is being used quite often. But I wouldn't want to see France playing this role of exacerbating, escalating, provoking the conflict. But I would like to see it more discussing possible peaceful solutions, something that the other journalist has been speaking about, so they can play their role. Not everything is lost. But I would like to end with the words of gratitude to the Russian people, to the Russian voters. Once again, I would like to emphasize we will do everything in our power to accomplish the goals of the national development in all areas. Thank you. Goodbye.